part 2 of our Murdaugh murder special.
The prosecution is saying he was carrying the firearms in this rain jacket.
Was there a confession?
I did it so bad.
Did you all hear him say, I did him so bad?
Really?
Their contention is he said they. What did the housekeeper say? The clothes he was wearing the day of the murders are missing.
Just bring the shirt in, and then the jury knows that you didn't change your clothes because they were covered with blood.
Okay, Vinnie, so he says he came out that other gate, turned away from the murder scene, drove 20 minutes to his mother's house. He says he stayed there for 45 minutes. We heard the caretaker say, no, he was there for 15 or 20 minutes. Did he offer any explanation as to why he went there at all?
Well, that night, his father had been admitted into hospice care. So the story is, I wanted to check on my mom since my dad had just been taken from the house. So he went to go see her. She suffers from dementia. She doesn't recognize him or doesn't really communicate with him. But when he got there, the caretaker said she was actually sleeping. I mean, it's that late at night. I mean, I spent some time down in the Low Country, Dr. Phil. You can't even get a seat at a restaurant past 8 o'clock. I mean, they shut down early, and this is after sunset. Sunset that night around 8:30. Why are you driving so late at night? It just doesn't make common sense. But the defense story and what his story is to this jury is that, listen, my dad was really sick. He's in hospice. I wanted to check on my mom. So I went, I held her hand for a while, and then I went back home.
And by that time, he was not in the blue shirt. He was in the T-shirt.
First, yeah. One of his, I think, 2 or 3 wardrobes of that day he was wearing that night. Different than what we saw in the video.
In the video with the tree.
Exactly.
Has anyone asked what happened to those clothes?
Well, they're missing. Where are they? Where's the shirt? Just bring in the shirt. I mean, this case could be won for the defense in like 30 seconds if either Alex Murdaugh wears that shirt to court or his attorney puts it into evidence, because this is like a missing piece. And yeah, the defense talks about what evidence you don't have, but like, where's the shirt that he was wearing? Like when I change my clothes, if I take it off, if I don't leave it on the floor, I'll throw it in the hamper. Just bring the shirt in, and then the jury knows that you didn't change your clothes because they were covered with blood.
You know, the jury, they understand just basic day-to-day life. When they see those images, which they have from the scene, where those 2 family members are slaughtered, Doc, and they're seeing that, they're putting 2 and 2 together. They're thinking, well, this is like, you know, he would have just been inundated with tissue and blood. It's almost like when you're a kid and someone throws a rock into a mud hole, it just splashes everywhere. It would have been similar to that, because we're not just talking about one shot at a distance. We're talking about in very close proximity. They want to see those clothes, I would think, the jury. And here's the other big thing that they want to see. We've heard about this. We've seen all of the destruction and everything that's gone on. They want to see the weapons. And there are no weapons. There's no weapons to be tested. There's no weapons to be seen.
You have to look at this in context. So what were they asking him just before he said this statement? They were asking him if he had seen some traumatic photographs of the victims. And they were saying, I know it's hard. I know this isn't easy. I know it's traumatic. And he says, it's so bad. I did. It's so bad. The I did, so give the I to the prosecution, but I don't see it as a confession to killing. He's saying I did, meaning I saw the photographs you're asking me about.
Is the third word him?
I hear it as an it. I did, it's so bad.
It's so bad.
Meaning the photographs.
So this comes down to a comma. I did you see it? I did, it's so bad.
I'm more confused now, Dr. Phil. I'm sorry. Well, I thought I was a little bit confused before. Now I'm more confused.
But that's why you don't want the prosecution hanging their hat on this alleged confession. It's not that strong of a piece of evidence.
Well, the investigator didn't hear a confession. I mean, if the investigator heard a confession, maybe a follow-up?
Well, and he said he didn't want to do it right then because it was early in the investigation. But then they said, in your next interview with him, did you ask him? He goes, no, we didn't ask him in the next interview either. So they never followed up.
See, I was thinking that, you know, I thought that conversation was going in the direction he has not been Mirandized at this point. Yeah. So we're not going to dig too deep into this. We're just kind of letting him spontaneously talk. I don't know if that was the case or not. But I was wondering what they were trying to extract from him. And one thing that just sits badly with me is that this agent that's on the stand is referring to him as
Mr.
Mr.
Alex.
Mr. Alec.
Yeah,
you know,
Mr.
like,
Alex.
and it
Yeah.
just, it kind of, I don't like that connotation.
There's a familiarity there that
Yeah, yeah,
bothers
there
me.
really
Now,
is.
let me go back to the clothes for a second, because there's this blue raincoat right here that was found at his mother's house, but not until like months later. What do we know about that, Loni?
So this is an interesting part of Miss Shelley's testimony that kind of got confusing between the questions by the prosecution and the defense. But what she said was that Alec came over to his mother's house after the murders at some point. He didn't go in to visit his mom. He was holding a balled up object in his hand that was blue, like a blue tarp. And then he went upstairs. He didn't go see his mom, didn't walk in, he went upstairs. And then he left. And that was about all she really said about it. Well, she happens to mention this to law enforcement 3 months later when she's in a car accident. So then they get a search warrant to go look at the mom's house. They never did the 3 months before. They go into the house upstairs. They happen to find a blue tarp and a blue rain jacket. And this rain jacket ends up being tested for GSR, and it has 38 particles of GSR on the inside and 19 particles of GSR on the outside. And those are significant numbers for GSR. So the prosecution is saying he was carrying the firearms, the weapons, at some point in this jacket, and that was why there's so much GSR on the inside of the jacket.
Kind of rolled up inside.
Yes, yeah.
Now, Loni, as of the end of last week, by my count, the state has called 44 witnesses and introduced over 400 exhibits to a jury trying to track all of this. They're not allowed to take notes. And what I worry about is, are they asking the jury to go to places of reason and rationale that are so far out that it can create reasonable doubt? They got to have one person that finds a reasonable doubt to hang this jury.
Yeah, Dr. Phil, I think as a prosecutor, I think the prosecution strategy in this case could end up damaging the case for them. I think that putting on so much information about these financial crimes is going to look like the defense is going to say, how many hours did we spend on the financial crimes? How many hours did we spend on the murder case? It could have been done very streamlined. They could have just said, how much money did he end up stealing from the clients? $4 million. How much do you steal from the law firm? But instead they went document by document. And I think that makes it very difficult for the jurors to really understand, why is all this significant? What does it tell me about the murder case?
I think where they need to go, and the focus has to be, and bring this back in the closing argument, is not so much about the money, but who his victims are and who he is betraying. When you talk about Gloria Satterfield, his housekeeper, she raised his 2 children. She's with them more than 20 years. She raised Buster and Paul. And now her children are left without a mother, and he says, I'm going to take care of you. And he promises them, he says, I should be able to get you $100,000, settles the case for millions, and doesn't even give them the $100,000. Gives them nothing, completely betrays his law partners. I mean, when you have a law firm, and I'm a lawyer too, you have a law firm, your law partner, like, you trust them. I mean, this is a bond. And they weren't just law partners, because we're in the low country of South Carolina. They're all friends. They're families. They call each other uncle. They go on trips together. I mean, their lives are intertwined. They're not just business partners. They're like family. And he's betraying all of them. And hopefully the jury is understanding that if you're the prosecution.
Well, Cousin Eddie has been subpoenaed. I guess there's a lot of cousins and all, but Cousin Eddie has been subpoenaed. What's the significance of his testimony? How's he going to fit into this?
Well, that's interesting, because there's actually a lot of things he could testify to. Now, remember, he's the one that is involved with Alex Murdaugh on the roadside shooting, which happens in September. And that's where Alec ends up with a gunshot to the head, and he's airlifted out. And it ends up that he says, well, eventually he says, I brought Cousin Eddie in to help me. I wanted him to shoot me. Essentially assisted suicide because I wanted my son to get the insurance policy. And so he can talk about that. He can talk about the fact that there were 10 different accounts that Alex Murdaugh was using in different versions of Cousin Eddie's name that he was, apparently funneling money into. So Cousin Eddie knows a lot of things. It really depends on what the court ends up allowing him
And
to
he's not
testify
really
to.
a cousin. His name's not really
No,
Eddie.
I don't think
Wait. We're in the low country, South Carolina. They may be related, Dr. Phil, because I found out Cousin Eddie's mother's last name, Murdaugh.
Really?
Yes.
Well, he's Curtis Smith, but his mother's name's Murdaugh.
Yes.
Like I said, I've spent a lot of time in trial, and one thing you tell your client is you don't interact with anybody in the gallery. You don't show any reaction to anything that happens on the stand. You don't shake your head. You don't throw your hands up. You don't accept anything from anybody in the gallery. You sit there and be respectful to the court, sit up straight, look straight ahead. You don't play these games because the jury is watching all of that, and they can look at that and say, what a bunch of arrogant, entitled, make your own rules above the law, just because of somebody trying to pass a book. And if you've got a family member out there flipping off a witness, if that happened and they saw that, that can be very prejudicial.
And they know who the family is. The jury knows because they've actually stood up. During testimony of some of the witnesses, the defense has introduced Buster Murdaugh to the jury. And I mean, just look at him with the red hair. It looks just like his dad. And next to him is John Marvin, which is Alex's brother, who, again, the family looks very much alike. So it's obvious who they are to anyone that's inside that courtroom.
Yeah, and that community too. You know, remember how shocked we were how quickly they got this jury impaneled? They had a very small pool to choose from. They chose not to move this trial anywhere else. And I remember a lot of us talking about this at the time. We were thinking this was going to take, you know, maybe 2 weeks to sit a jury. It was like, what, 3 or 4 days, and boom, they've got a jury. They know everybody in the community. They see them around. And, you know, this idea that they are, let's see, what's the term they keep throwing around? Benevolent kings in this community. And that in and of itself has got, you know, kind of a chilling effect.
Now they have
People
6
know.
alternates, is that right?
They had 6 alternates.
And now 2 have COVID, 1's gone to the ER, so they've activated 3 alternates and have 3 left.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Alex Murdaugh is on trial for the double murder of his wife and his youngest son. Now, the point is going to come where the defense is getting their turn, and people are going to wonder, this benevolent king, will he get up and take the stand? Will he tell his story? Will he sell this line that he's been selling, that he wasn't there? Will he try to explain why his voice is on that video? Will he try and reconcile the differences? Now, you would think, hell no, he sure shouldn't. But if they are desperate, they could think, you got nothing to lose, if they think they're way, way behind. What do you think will happen?
I think, despite the fact that it's always a horrible idea, I think that there is a very good chance that Alex Murdaugh will take the stand. I think that he is very narcissistic. I think he is used to running the courtroom. That's why his family does whatever they want to do. And we've heard over and over again that he had this special gift of being able to get people to believe him. From whatever he was saying, I'm going to take care of you, I'm helping you, even though he's, you know, stealing millions of dollars from him. Everyone believed him. Everyone thought he was a wonderful person. I think that he believes that he can sell this to the jury, and I think it gives him a chance to explain the most damaging part of the prosecution's case, which is, you were there.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.